So, this is now the official halfway progress video of converting my custom box truck. Right here, this is the very beginning when we were actually removing all of the wall panels and getting everything ready to start being built. But that again required us removing the pre-existing boards on the wall so that we'd have room to insulate and use these interior kind of, I guess, rods as places to secure the wood too. And here we're marking some lines for where each of our insulation pieces are going to be going.
So that's where we're going to stop the insulation.
And yeah, so now we start laying down the insulation itself onto the board of the truck. We did about 4.5 pieces. It did require some cutting and a lot of adhesive to make sure that stuck to the subfloor. And we're actually going to be putting on, as you'll see later, the floor over this, but this is going to be what allows us to insulate and keep the truck warm from the ground since there are little cracks on the bottom. Here, my cousin is helping cut those pieces into smaller strips so we can have some tighter to get spaces, and we also had a lot of 2x4s to cut so that we could get started with the actual framing of the truck itself on the inside. Again, we were using some 2x4s, actually mainly 2x4s, and we constructed the walls individually in sections using anywhere from 5 to up to 8 different 2x4s. We also had to remove the previous electrical system that was in the truck, so big shout out to Matt for helping out there, using some special tools to, you know, do stuff like that. And yeah. So here we are putting up our first wall in the very back of this, and we're leaving some room on the left side for the next wall to kind of sneak into there, and a little bit of extra room on the right because we had to do a separate frame for that. We couldn't make it bigger than the actual 2x4 itself. And we needed to secure it to the wall, so we were using different brackets to make sure that that 2x4 not only was stable to the floor, but also stable to the wall. And as you can see, there's that bracket in the background there. You could pull on this wall and that is not going to come off of the frame. It's just giving a bunch of extra support to the box itself. Now, for reference, I have no idea what any of this is. That's for my cousin Matt, who is a contractor and basically a builder himself, the Salt City Craftsman. I called him up to help him, or have him help explain what everything did, how this all would impact the structure of the box, and from there I kind of followed his lead. This is me building my first frame all on my own, and my mom, of course, coming into photobomb. And yeah, so this was me doing that first wall frame all on my own, just laying it out on the ground and doing some cuts for some more custom pieces that we would need, like the jack stud, the king stud, for some other parts here. And then that's, again, doing the same thing, rinse and repeat, screwing those into the floor, and then going ahead and bracketing those to the wall. And we built a frame around the pre-existing door before the new door went in, just so we could keep getting in and out of that. And again, these are those little bits and pieces. This is the next wall here for the bathroom. So this bathroom wall is separated from the rest of the living space for obvious reasons. And it's just getting that up, getting it in, so that we can eventually build an actual wall. That's just the framing for now. And carrying in the bed frame once again here to separate what is going to be the garage underneath the bed from the rest of the truck itself. We did the same thing for the windows. As you can see, putting up that window hole there, we measured for what is called the rough opening for when we need to go ahead and cut out the window area itself. We left a little bit bigger than what needed to be there.
There we go.
And here we are actually framing the ceiling, doing custom cuts to reinforce the ceiling framing because it was a little bit away from the roof itself, the aluminum roof, which is very thin, doesn't have much support. We put those extra beams up top to make sure that we could have some extra support and that it wouldn't cave in if we were going to walk on it or if any snow went in. Here we are putting in the piping, the PEX piping for the plumbing that is actually not even done yet, just giving us a start for when it's time to go ahead and do the plumbing for the shower and the bathroom. And again, just get that start in there for now. One less thing we'll need to do later. And now we had to go ahead and start working on the wiring, where we were putting in the outlet boxes and drilling holes through the framing so that the wire could be run through to each outlet box and what is soon going to be the lights. Now, this actually was one of the more mundane but complicated parts of the build so far. We needed to make sure all the wire types were right, they were all in their own circuits, that all the holes were drilled in an efficient way to allow for the wire to run without wasting too much, as we were limited on how much wire we had, but also make sure that they were spaced out enough from each other and didn't cause too much clutter either. So if you can see those index cards, we actually went ahead and marked out where the different lights are going to be, where the different outlets would be, so that we could easily run the wire that way. Those were pre-measured ahead of time to make sure we're in the right area. And we actually had to go get a separate long drill piece for those really thick cuts. As you can see, even right next to my hand here, there were 3 blocks thick where our normal drill just didn't make a hole that big, so we had to get an extended one. Here we are wiring the wires into the ceiling. This is me and my brother, who also has a lot of construction experience from his previous job and a bit of wiring experience as well, so he was a big help in getting this all done here. And we're actually running a couple of lights and switches to that garage area for when that's open and when it's needed, but most of the wiring was done on this side of the truck, where we're gonna have a lot of outlets, the kitchen, and the electrical system itself. Mitch also likes the taste of wire. My girlfriend actually came and joined and helped some of the wiring. We were watching, I think, the Bears game, or maybe, I don't remember what game this was in the background. Having a great time out at night, out in the evening. Just getting everyone really hands-on with this project has been fantastic. We see the space heater. Turned that on for when it started getting a little chilly, although a little chilly then is a lot warmer than it is as I'm making this video. I wish that was enough to keep it warm. And then those green wires that you're seeing that are separate from the white wires are actually what are called the ground wires, to make sure that, well, the electrical system is grounded. And here we are getting the framing for the windows and the doors built out, that metal to keep it reinforced. And we even added a little underneath storage section and a trailer hitch. And then now I'm getting started on getting the solar panels ready to be put on top, although those actually aren't up yet, as you might have seen from the last video, but they're getting ready. They're ready to put up when the weather turns or when I go somewhere warmer with this truck. Just getting each bracket put in, and then this T-bar, which ended up being the wrong screws. I had to redo all of this. Fortunately, I only did that on a panel or two. But yeah, that's going to be right on top. And now here we are getting started with the insulation in the walls themselves, and that's why we left that area open, so that this type of insulation would fit in there just about perfectly. And we just had to cut it to the right length of the ceiling. We ended up going through a lot of insulation. We had to make a couple trips, but just making sure everything's measured out correctly. And yeah, that's gonna help keep this truck extremely warm. I can speak from experience. It already is helping keep this truck extremely warm, even without the walls up. My mom was a huge help in getting these cut up with me. It saved so much time, and just helping them, especially the ones on the ceiling, to hang up while I went ahead and stapled all of those in. Don't judge my form if you guys professionally do this. This is my first time. We also had to cut holes through the insulation to make sure that the wiring could hang out through it for when we went to put the lights in. But again, getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Here we are cutting out the ceiling for after the insulation was put on, and putting on that first bit. We actually used a drywall lift to hold up these ceiling panels, which were very thin. And yeah, so we had to go through and measure each piece there and start actually cutting through the ceiling, which was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Just because if you're off by even a quarter of an inch, you're gonna have a gap or it's gonna be too big. So we had to go through and do this a couple of times and make a couple of different cuts. My mom's got the steady hands, that's not me. My brother also has much steadier hands and better methods than I do, but after a few different cuts, we finally started getting the side panel in, and as you'll see, we ended up getting all the panels in, which has looked great so far. And then we went in to start with the bathroom, because that's going to be a separate type of ceiling, so that it can hold the vent fan and also just look a little bit different from the rest of the truck. I wanted some separation. And here we are, kind of with all of the insulation in, the windows are now in, and now we're cutting holes through the ceiling where those little slits where the wire was hanging out. As you're gonna see, we're pulling those wires down through those little holes, and that's where the lights are gonna go very soon here. And just making sure each spot was well marked ahead of time. And I called a friend, family friend, Dan, because he's got those gentle hands to help cut through there. I was worried that I was gonna cut through the wire. Once again, my mom helping out with those steady hands too, and just cutting out the exact size of where those lights are going to go with a little jigsaw, and now the wires are popping down through. Surprisingly, we didn't cut through a single wire, which was extremely impressive. Now this is me getting the sheathing off of the wire so that I could actually put the wires into the lights, which was a really kind of cool experience to get to see how to do. So made sure that the copper wire was showing, got one of these wire boxes, and here we are getting those wire ties, or whatever they're called, into the light, hooking up the lights to the wires, and getting that all situated for each of them. This was a pretty mundane task in itself. Trying to reach up near the ceiling the whole time, holding my hands up there and working with the wiring up there was more of a challenge than I wanted it to be, but light by light, day by day, got a few of them in. And this was my attempt at putting up the first solar panel. So it's about a 12-foot walk up to the top of the truck, and made sure we got a really big ladder, and I ended up getting a piece of insulation up there so that when the solar panel got up there, I wasn't worried about dropping it or anything, just kept the insulation right underneath that panel, so I wasn't worried about scratching anything up too much. And this is me sanding down the top area so that we could get some better adhesion when I went to go place the solar panels down. Again, unfortunately, it ended up being a bit too cold for the right adhesion. We might even end up drilling through the ceiling itself when it comes time to place those solar panels, but now here we are, putting the last piece of insulation in to the garage space, and a shirt that is just clearly too small for me. And yeah, so now basically the rest of the floor, everything is officially insulated. All the floorboards are in, including the garage floorboards, and we're ready to go from here. Now it's really warm. The last thing we have to insulate is that back door, but need to make sure that the subfloor, or that the OSB, what it's called, this what looks like plywood, is connected all the way down to the subfloor, holding down that insulation and making sure it's just there and steady. Now we're starting with that bathroom ceiling, which is going to be painted. or some wallpaper finish on top of it. But we got a thicker piece of wood for the bathroom, like I had mentioned. Now this is me getting this last bit of lights in for that main living area, which was really exciting. I was really excited with how this came out at the very end. But that's essentially where we're at so far. We're about halfway through. The next step is going to be getting the electrical system fully finished out and getting all the rest of the finishing touches put on after that, like the walls, the painting, and the furniture. So really excited where we're at. Thank you guys all for watching, and I'm really excited to see you in the next video.